they had asked you is about this figure, and they had given you one symbol like the marked structure after cortical mastoidectomy. So can you identify this structure? Yes, it is lateral semicircular canal, and you will observe that one more procedure is done here. So can you tell me what one more procedure is done here? What is this opening and how is this created? So this is basically a procedure called posterior tympanotomy. Yes, it's tympanotomy, but which one? Tympanotomy is like tomy is making a hole or perforation. So even if you are making a hole in tympanic membrane, it will be myringotomy. Here also you are entering the middle ear, but via posterior route. This is your posterior wall of external auditory canal. After cortical mastoidectomy, you are doing posterior tympanotomy to enter into the middle ear through the mastoid cortex. Okay, and why, most commonly why you do this posterior tympanotomy is, the main indication is cochlear implantation. So again, a hit topic in ENT is cochlear implantation. So for introducing the electrode, we do this posterior tympanotomy, and through this posterior tympanotomy, what you can see here is the round window niche. That means here you can see the round window here, and this is just what we need to do is we need to drill this, the anterior part. So we call it anterior cochleostomy. We drill it and introduce the cochlear electrode through it. But what is important for you at present is to know the boundaries for posterior tympanotomy or facial recess boundary. So how many of you know this facial recess boundary? Let us revise this and see that the facial nerve, facial recess, sinus tympani is different thing. Here we are talking about facial recess, which is a landmark, or you can say the pathway for doing the posterior tympanotomy. Okay, posterior tympanotomy is just entering the middle ear through the mastoid cortex, and here you will see medially you are getting the horizontal, not horizontal, it is the vertical part of the facial nerve, vertical segment of the facial nerve. Here, from here you are getting laterally is the chorda tympani and superiorly is the incaudal buttress. So what is this incaudal buttress? Why we are saying this incaudal? Because this is a bony overhang over the incus. So here you can see incus projection, a part of incus you can see here. So basically you need to identify all the structures which are being shown here, because this time they had asked you this Mallory White lateral semicircular canal. Okay, now in next time they can ask you this incus. In any other exam they can ask you this medial boundary of the posterior tympanotomy, the vertical segment of facial nerve. Yes, this incaudal buttress is also called fossa incutis. Laterally is your chorda tympani, and this triangle, when we drill in this triangle, we enter the middle ear and we can insert the cochlear implant electrode through this. Okay, so these structures need to be very clear for you. Again, in another structure, another figure where you can see the incus, here you can see the chorda tympani, medial is the facial nerve, and this space is where you drill for posterior tympanotomy. Little more detailed. Now you know that this is your lateral semicircular canal or horizontal canal. So how you are going to identify it? It will be looking like Mallory White. So it is just white, Mallory White. On more drilling, you will encounter superior semicircular canal here and posterior semicircular canal here. This is your facial nerve. Okay, this white segment is your facial nerve. Through the window, through the posterior tympanotomy, what all you can see? The round window niche you can see. And this is incus, chorda tympani. One more thing is, here you can see your boundaries of cortical mastoidectomy. So superiorly is what structure? Superiorly this is your tegment. Yeah, tegment. This is your the posterior boundary is the bluish is sigmoid sinus. Very right. Okay, and here somewhere here you will find the digastric ridge. This is your posterior external auditory canal, the posterior wall of external auditory canal. Somewhere here will be your mastoid tip. This is the tympanic membrane you can see. Okay, so now most of the things are clear for you and you will be able to answer it if they ask you in future. Okay, so superiorly is your tegment tympani, posteriorly is sigmoid sinus, bulged out. Okay, anteriorly is your posterior canal wall, and in the end, inferiorly it joins at the tip of the that is mastoid tip. Here the landmark is digastric ridge. So digastric ridge is another white shiny thing where you will find the digastric muscle insertion. And why it is important, this digastric ridge is very important for facial nerve identification. What you will see is while drilling for cortical mastoidectomy that your facial nerve lies just in plane of this digastric ridge. So you have to identify the digastric ridge first and then drill for the facial nerve. Okay. In a similar way, lateral semicircular canal is also an important landmark to know that your facial nerve is lying below this, somewhere here, right? So these are some important landmarks because temporal bone is quite complex bone to drill for. Okay, so to operate on temporal bone is the most complex bone to operate on. And here you can see your cochlear electrode entering through the posterior tympanotomy into the round window. And there was a question that this electrode enters which part of inner ear, whether it is scala vestibuli or scala tympani. So I know most of you must be knowing this. Just tell me. Yeah, so it is scala tympani. Now one more related question was there, that brainstem implantation is done where? Just can you comment me and let me know that where it is done. Brainstem implantation. Cochlear implantation, you already know. Brainstem implantation is what they had asked you. Yes, fourth ventricle, but where? Dr. Rajat, you are right, but where? Where in the fourth ventricle? Lateral recess, yes. Very close. So you will be able to answer if they ask you. Lateral wall means somewhat near. So lateral recess of fourth ventricle is the place where you do brainstem implantation. This is just a figure to anticipate your future question.